Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. If we can get a raise of hands real quick just to see if the sound is coming through all right for you all. Welcome to this edition of Sales and Solution. It's intended to really provide for you as either a new partner or an existing partner to get information about who Zyxel is and really kind of a high level introduction of our products that we offer, kind of the key products that we offer to you. Thank you for the hands there. My name is Nguyen. I am the product manager at Zyxel. I've been here for over 15 years now in the company, and we're really looking forward to being able to provide you a lot of information. And we're glad that you're here again this morning, this afternoon, to provide you with any questions you may have, and also to introduce you to all those products. So we have a Q&A box. If you'd love, if you can, please use that, and I'll try to answer those as we go along. So submit those, and we'll take care of that either during the presentation or at the end. This is also being recorded as well. So if you have some team members who want to take a look and watch some of this later on at another time, or reviewing it yourself, you can do so through our partner portal. So let's go ahead and get started. We got a lot of slides to cover. It's kind of a high level overview of some of the key products and things about Zyxel. So be comfortable knowing about a little bit about who Zyxel is. We've been around since 1989. I'm from the Anaheim office in California. We serve pretty much the North America markets, but we have over 1,500 employees worldwide, serving 150 different global markets. We have 700,000 businesses that are powered by Zyxel solutions, and we are making over 100 million different device connections globally. We offer a wide range of products, both on the telco service provider side, the business connectivity, which is where I'm primarily focused on, and also within the smart and connected home as well. So we provide a full range of products. I pretty much tell our partners anything that can connect to a network, Zyxel has something that will make that connection possible. We also have a very great R&D capability. About a third of our workforce is our engineering and support group. So we have over 500 engineers that design the software and the hardware at our headquarters and throughout the different global areas of R&D. That means that partners like yourself have the ability to pretty much dictate or maybe even make suggestions on new products, new functionalities of products, things that make your business easier, right? So how you function on a day-to-day basis, from management, from, again, functionality, features like that, you have direct access to us because we are designing the software and also the hardware in place. So a lot of you may not know that yet, but we have lots of partners who have contributed a lot to what you see nowadays in our product portfolio. And our portfolio is a wide range. It covers everything from security appliances, access points, switching, networking, hospitality gateways, and all being able to manage it in either a software, virtual device, or in a cloud solution. So again, anything that is connected to a network, we have that within the commercial space. So first I wanted to cover is our security product line. That includes our VPN, our cloud security, our USG, and our ATP series. It's basically anything dealing with network security. We have products that fulfill that. So our portfolio ranges anywhere from things you want to do just for like VPN solutions. If you want to do a more cloud managed solution with security, we have our NSG series. Our USG series is kind of an all-in-one solution, providing you with 1 year of UTM services, so Unified Threat Management. That's your antivirus, intrusion detection, content filtering, all of those things within the network security space, all in one box. Now, we did release what we call advanced threat protection. It is UTM, but on a much higher scale. It has the latest technology in hardware and also the latest threat protection capabilities like sandboxing. And it uses an AI that I'll talk about, an AI that will help you to detect zero-day threats or new threats that are coming out. So a lot of unknown threat blocking. So that's kind of our security portfolio. We also kind of pride ourselves that we want to make sure that the network is always available, right? Every business nowadays is now functioning in some capacity of using the internet, whether it be cloud, file storage or even access of email, of course, and web pages, and also everything that's hosted off site, including voice and video and those kinds of things. So we want to make sure that everything's available. So we have 4 tiers of availability. We have firmware and OS availability, high availability, a WAN high availability. So if you're looking at multiple internet connections to do load balancing, failover type functionalities, these are the security boxes that will do that. If you're looking at making sure your VPN tunnels are also at high availability, we have features that do that as well, with VPN high availability, building it to different WAN connections or even different locations to ensure that you always have a tunnel built where it needs to go. Device high availability ensures that the hardware itself can be, you can have multiple units to, in case one fails, then it can automatically fail over to another. So again, just priding ourselves in making sure that the connectivity is always there. We use a lot of independent expertise for our unified threat management platform. Companies like Bitdefender, Siren, Trend Micro, and the ATP has even more than that on that. So again, we're using their expertise to make sure that our products are functioning to kind of peak performance. And so we leverage their expertise in doing so. Now, we also include application awareness capabilities. So being able to scan at the layer 7 level, being able to even understand what devices, applications are being used, and being able to control that. So I know before when you used a firewall of sorts, a lot of them were just SPI firewalls that would just block ports. But of course, we know that applications can use different ports to get out. So how do you know which ports to block or control? So using application aware, the aware engine allows for you to identify things like Skype packets or YouTube packets, whatever it may be, those kinds of applications, and be able to control them and control those behaviors how you wish. We also provide for partners a kind of a licensing model within our security platform. It allows for you as partners to do things like a managed service or being able to enjoy recurring revenue from your partners. So putting these devices out into the field is kind of like a gold mine, I always say, that gives you an opportunity to either upsell different services or be able to just, once you've enabled the services, to be able to enjoy, again, those recursive recurring revenues. If you have not yet already, as a new partner, you may have noticed when you do buy a security firewall, the licenses have to get registered at a site called myzyxel.com. That is the kind of the central cloud database that manages all the devices, all of your licensing within the devices, and also how you manage like your customers and such. So make sure that when you do create an account, or if you already have an account, that you click on the button at the very top. It says request for reseller view. What this allows for you to do is it allows for that username or your company name to be included in a list that when you connect or install another customer device, you can choose yourself as the managing VAR. So that allows for you to see from your login all of the customers that are under your umbrella of management. So then it allows for you to, again, update or kind of enable services. So you could buy licenses for them. Again, you can manage them and you can build them, accordingly how you want to do it, depending on your business model. But that's where it shows you the when it expires and things like that. So this is kind of the central database for you to manage all of those settings. Now, what is VPC? Well, all of our security devices now are enabled with what we call VPC, AWS public cloud. It allows for you to make a VPN tunnel connection between an office to the Amazon private network. So there's a lot of hosted services within the Amazon cloud. And so in order to make that kind of connection, you actually have to have a firewall security appliance that's capable of building and certified for that VPN connection to Amazon. So that's what Zyxel has actually done. We've actually gotten ourselves approved within Amazon. You just have to be on one of the later firmwares. If you have a really old device, you just need to go up to one of the later firmwares that will have that ability. But now you have a very cost-effective, we're up there with all the major manufacturers out there to providing this. So there's kind of a short list of who actually has been certified for VPC. So Zyxel is one of those. So you can connect to your web applications, your CRMs, your file shares, any kind of databases that are there hosted within the cloud. Now, Zyxel's ATP is a product line that is our latest generation of security appliances. It stands for our Advanced Threat Protection. And what it does is a little bit different than what the conventional UTM is. So conventional UTM, like our USG series, or maybe something that you're used to already, can only do so much. In fact, it only knows how to block what is given to it in terms of like signatures, heuristics, reputations. So it's a kind of a known block list, right? It can only block what it knows. So what it does is it can see, well, there's good traffic, so it lets that pass, or it could be suspicious or very known bad. It's a virus, things like that. So it blocks it, right? But in between, it's kind of a gray area. This is where it's kind of difficult to decide, well, is it really bad or is it good? So it allows for instances of like false positives, even false negatives and things like that. And so it can't really define it very clearly. So this is where ATP using sandboxing in our AI can actually manage that. So we can actually block what we call unknown threats. So 0-day threats that come out there. In fact, that's primarily the most, the type of traffic that's out there in terms of threats. They're typically unknown threats, right? You're not going to try to infect somebody with a known virus because probably an old virus will already have signatures that are blocking, so it'll probably be less effective. So a lot of times they are going after 0-day attacks or really targeted attacks. So how do we conquer those threats? Well, this is what we use in our smart cloud intelligence technology. So let's say there's a zip file that is unknown. It contains some sort of unknown threat. It is sent to actually the cloud, and where it emulates it, it is then sees how, if it's making kind of connections back home. So a lot of like viruses, Trojans may dial home or try to call home to some sort of hacker server, things like that, some sort of behavior that can be emulated. Then it decides whether or not this is a threat, and it can identify it if it's malicious, and then provide that as kind of in a database that it then passed on into the cloud. Now, the advantage of having it all within the cloud now is that all other ATP devices that are within the network, not just your own, but across the world, is now going to be protected against that unknown threat. So basically what we do is we still take what is unknown and make it known, right? And then share that across the board, make sure that everyone is then protected by that. The ATP portfolio consists of several models. We actually just added an ATP 100, so that's kind of the lower scale model, but primarily all the functionality is all there. The only difference is either ports, WAN ports, and performance. That's the biggest deal. You can see SPI throughputs that can range from, on the 100 side, 1 gigabit SPI firewall all the way up to 8,000 gigabit or 8,000 megabits per second. Sorry, not 1 gigabit. It's a 1 gigabit all the way to 8 gigabits of throughput on the ATP 800. Now, the UTM throughput is what's probably most important to you. Of course, if you're installing security appliances now, a lot of times that throughput number is the max theoretical, right? There we're using tests and doing multiple sessions to make sure what is the ultimate, amount of traffic that we can push through this box to find the breaking point per se. So 450 megabits on the USG 200, that's probably good for a connectivity of anywhere between 200 to 300 megabits per second. So that's really good for a connectivity, and that's what we find out today. I don't know about what maybe in your area, how you're dealing with internet connectivity, but here in California, the internet speeds have really blown up really quickly, especially for the business. Before, maybe just a year or two ago, the maximum that you can really get at an affordable cost was like a 50 meg connection. But now all of a sudden, with cable modem services and things like that being very aggressive, you're getting 200-300 megabits all the way up to a gigabit of speed, fairly affordable. And the primary issue is, in order to get security, at a very big security that you need and at the performance that you need. So the kind of the main difference between ATP and the USGs, it's kind of comparison is not too much different. in terms of some of the primary UTM functions. It still has application control, IDP, VPN connectivity, malware protection, content filtering, GeoIP enforcement, things like that. But what the ATP provides is a botnet filter and, more importantly, the sandboxing functionality. So it's able to block zero-day kind of attacks. Now, in addition to that, of course, like I mentioned before, is the speed, right? The speed is the biggest performance thing that you'll find that is very more cost effective, I would say. So if you compare like a USG 210 back from the previous generation, it will do 660 megabits per second, but the ATP 500, which is within the same price range, can do 2.5 times more throughput using IDP. And of course, UTM is where it's also important. You can see that our highest end model back in the day, or from the previous generation, is a 700 megabit UTM throughput on the USG 1900. But even the midline ATP 500 will do 800 megabits per second on UTM. So you can see it's going to be very cost effective to make sure that the small businesses can be protected and be doing so at a very affordable cost. Now, the only difference right now from the USG series versus the ATP is that the USG series does have our hotspot management function. So if you're looking at doing billing, like using PayPal to accept credit cards for your hotspot networks or guest network access, then the USG series is still the kind of the one that you would pick. Now, we are adding those functionalities to the ATP as well. You could still do guest network access through the ATP through a portal redirect login functionality. It just won't have the billing, the billing functionality like through a credit card at the moment. But that's going to be coming in a future release. So our security is also, for a managed service provider, it's very important to get kind of information back, get some feedback from those networks. So what we do offer as well is a reporting tool, a reporting software. So we call it Secu Reporter. It's a way for you to centralize the analysis, reporting, alerting, monitoring, all in a visual kind of interface within a cloud-hosted system where all of your devices that you're managing, whether it be multiple customers or just for your own networks, those are all hosted within the cloud and gives you, sends all of its log data information that you want it to send and be able to give you reporting back. So it leverages a great kind of functionality in that you can do monthly reports for that customer. So people always ask me, so how do I show value in UTM services? Because I want to charge my customers for those. But sometimes blocking a network or protecting a network is kind of nebulous, right? It's in the cloud. It's just day-to-day traffic, and you don't get to see it. So these reports allow for you to send in information and show it in a visual format that will show what kind of bandwidth utilization, who's using which bandwidth, what web pages they are going to, that kind of thing. So a lot of that feedback then comes back and say, hey, we blocked these many viruses from our appliances, and really be able to show value in what you're providing as a service. And so it allows for you to drill in as well. So you can drill in to see, again, which applications are using the most, as who within those applications are using that kind of traffic. So you can get to a lot of the information that you need from a live perspective. You can even provide logins for your customer to get view of just their managed devices as well. So it sees all kinds of threats. It sees where their attacks are coming from, who's the attacker, who's the person who's getting attacked, where the viruses are originating, so that you can then do some troubleshooting or maybe clean out that as well. Don had a question. So I have an ATP 100 set up and my reports are blank. Any ideas? Usually what happens is if you have to make sure that your ATP is set up with to make sure that the logs are being sent, and that you make sure that your Secu reporter is actually enabled within the device so that it is sending the logs. So you have to make sure that both sides of it, the ATP and the Secu reporter, is both turned on, and they're tied together in terms of they're connected, right? So you have to send the logs to the correct account. So if you have any issues still, Don, make sure you reach out to our support. The other thing that may be as well is you may not have the security settings turned on. So you might not be doing any content filtering at the moment, or you may not have configured the ADP, IDP, those kinds of things. So again, check with our support. We could help you with that. And Nebula is our cloud solution. So this has actually been a very popular product line for us, and it's been a great selling point for customers like yourself. Everybody's looking at ways to manage in the cloud. Now, of course, if you are a managed service provider or looking to be a managed service provider yourself, it's a great way for you to get started, especially if you're not tied in already to some sort of remote management tool. Nebula provides everything for you. So what is Nebula? Nebula consists of what we call a control center. It's designed for deployments of traditional networks, but within the cloud, you can deploy them in the prem, and on all the devices are then managed within the cloud itself. So it provides a very scalable, very cost-effective solution for that, and it can scale as you need. So whether you're just needing cloud for one office and then multiplying that by 100, later on, you can manage that within the whole system. And we also have what we call Nebula Orchestrator, and that is primarily for our SD-WAN solution. So if you have SD-WAN needs, those kinds of things, we could talk more about that later. But right now, we're going to be focused mostly on the control center itself and what products are there. So managing, especially if you are a partner, you're dealing with managed IT, and you're managing either on a break-fix model or on a managed service where you're charging a monthly fee to managing networks or to managing the network kind of health, right? Making sure the firewalls are enabled, the Wi-Fi, the switching network, any kind of VLANs, priorities, those kinds of things for VoIP management. All that is within that system. So typically, in order to do kind of a managed service, there's a lot of pieces that come into play, and all can kind of contribute to investments in man hour and also into cost for the infrastructure itself. So what Nebula provides is, there's still a few things that you still have to get. That is equipment. You need the hardware in order to enable the service, right? You need switches, you need security appliances, you need wireless, and you need the licenses to make sure that the cloud is functioning to maintain those kind of contracts. You have to also go and physically install the equipment. You have to go and make sure that the devices are functioning, right? And typically before, you would have to send an engineer onto site in order to make those network configurations. So it could be costly to do that, right? But again, I'll talk about how our solution will solve a lot of these issues. You then have to monitor the equipment. But in the cloud, you don't necessarily have to monitor because it's going to be enabled automatically within that same cloud platform. You have to be able to have access to the equipment, either before you have to physically make a connection, or you had to find ways to make the connection to get in there, right? You had to build either like a VPN tunnel, you had to do some port forwardings, a lot of those kinds of things. In order to manage that network, you needed access somehow. Oh, even many cases, you had to put back in the day, you had to put a PC server somewhere in there, and that was hardwired or connected into the network so that you could dial into it and things like that to make some connectivity changes. You need a monitoring platform. You want to be able to know when a device goes off or there are some issues with it being reported, right? You have to have some sort of management platform. You have to store the data, maybe the log data. You would typically have to install like a syslog server, some sort of backup, kind of, I can't think of the word, kind of a backup process, right? A procedure in order to get all your configuration files backed up somewhere on a file share. We can handle that all for you within the cloud. Being able to upgrade devices, right? Being able to do mass changes and do that very efficiently. The old way is to go out and do every single one, one by one. And then, of course, user management, the day-to-day, making sure that users are authenticated, that the devices are there, have access, or even doing things like a captive portal for guest network access. So what Nebula provides for you is kind of a solution that helps you limit your kind of the man hours that are required to kind of get up and running, and also from an investment, from a hardware perspective, very cost effective as well. So from a setup perspective, you can literally set up the devices within Nebula without even having to unbox the device. We provide a QR code on both the box and also the belly label device that allows for you to use our app to scan that and add it right into your Nebula account. And you can then apply that that device to which organization, which is like which customer, and which site within that organization. So if they have multiple sites as well. So you're able to do that without even having to unbox. So just imagine the scenario, and I use this scenario a lot in terms of talking to a partner. Imagine you making a cookie cutter scenario for a doctor's office, right? It requires an access point for their guest network and for the private network, a switch to power up that and also connect computers and other devices within the network, cameras, whatever it may be, and then also a security appliance of some sort. So we have those three. You imagine configuring that as your template. Now, when you have a customer, a doctor's office customer or something of equivalence, you can just clone the site onto that new customer, make your changes, scan in an access point, a switch, a gateway, add it to that device, and now you're actually ready to go. You didn't even have to take the thing out of the box. So you either can take that box, go and give it to your installer, who then will just go and either just make the connectivity, or you can come up with a self-install kit option as well. That just makes it so people just need to make the connection to the internet, because it's actually really easy to connect. It just needs internet connection. So as long as there's some sort of DHCP or existing network connectivity there, you can literally be up in minutes. And what it does is there are built-in agents within the device that knows that once it has internet connectivity, it can call home to the Nebula Control Center and say, here I am. Who do I belong to, right? And the system will tell that to them to say, okay, you belong to doctor's office AB. And so then all the configurations, the latest firmwares, all that gets pushed down to the device, and then it can be up and running within minutes. So again, it's almost like a no-touch, in a sense, installation or configuration. And so that means that you can cut down costs of sending a network engineer, a fully qualified network engineer to go to do an installation. But literally, you can now have even better reach, where you can contract out to somebody who just needs to be able to know how to connect. Okay, the internet connection goes into the firewall plugs into the switch plugs into the access point and wherever it needs to be installed, right? That's it. They don't need to worry about the configuration, because you have your main technicians already pre-configured the device in the cloud that gets pushed to the device. So it can save you a lot in that. And also your reach, right? We have a lot of now a third-party app, kind of like a service that there are third parties out there that can do these kinds of networking installations that you can contract out, and you can send these devices to those locations to go do these installations, right? So now your reach can be literally anywhere, that you can ship devices. So there's no additional software or hardware. So that's a little bit different from what you may be using now. There's no cloud keys. There's no extra hardware that you have to plug into the network. There's no servers that you have to do. There's no port forwardings that you have to do. Nothing like that. Our devices will go from inside out to call home back to the Nebula Control Center. So there's no additional hassle of installing all that software or hardware in this kind of scenario. And of course, because it's in the cloud, you have access to it anytime, anywhere you have internet connectivity. If you're hiking in the mountains, if you're wherever it may be where you still have internet connectivity, you can have access to the Nebula Control Center to configure, to monitor, to find any issues, to troubleshoot. And you can also give access to, again, your customers, to show the value of this kind of platform, right? They can log into their organization, their IT team, or even the president of the company, whatever it may be, can log in and say, oh, wow, I can see my network's going, the green lights, where all they're connected, who's using what bandwidth, those kinds of things, and not be able to make changes either. So we can have a view only option for those kinds of customers. Now you can even go down to a level where your technicians can be assigned to specific organizations, or even technicians assigned to just specific sites, right? So you can split up and divvy out who has access to what, so that there's no kind of risk of one employee accessing everything if you don't want that to be that in that way. And of course, it's available on the mobile as well. So you get a lot of information in that mobile app. The same app that you use to scan in devices also can give you information about the overall health of the different organizations, what access points are on, how much PoE you're using within that network, all within the palm of your hand. And of course, you can manage all of that and all your clients in a single place. It's a single pane of glass, allows you to do multi-tenant organizations, as well as even individual sites within those organizations. And the view is pretty straightforward. It's a multi-tier management view made for MSPs. When you log in, there's an organization view. It shows you all of your organization customers. You can set the different admin capabilities of who has access to what organizations, and then you can drill in. So you get your quick glance. It will show kind of the overall health of what you would see on the normal dashboard right here on this individual pane. Of course, when you click into it, you can get into the organization itself. So in the org view, it will show you the status of all the different sites. Again, a quick information view. You can add each one of the different sites to a Google map to kind of represent where everything is and where their locations are. And of course, you can then drill into that to see the site itself. So within the site, you can still jump between the different organizations as you feel fit. And then you can get information like internet usage, application usage, top clients, things like that within the traffic. So get an overall status of it, all the packets that are being used, all the PoE that's being used, how many devices, etc. Now we have what we call, you'll hear probably a word within our product portfolio called Nebula Flex. So what we've done is, because we do have competition where they offer a free cloud, we've offered a functionality that allows for you to use the device both in standalone mode and be able to use it into the Nebula central management mode. So you can choose between deploying standalone now and then moving the customer to cloud later on. All that is available is available to those products that have Nebula Flex on it. Now, of course, all of more and more of the devices that we're coming out with are becoming Nebula Flex capable, or we're being able, or if we are able to, we're adding the Nebula Flex capabilities to existing products. Now, of course, it's going to be mostly reserved to kind of the newer products that are out, but you'll see in our product portfolio, pretty much we have products that will cover everything. Now, we do also have something called Nebula Flex Pro. There are some products that can switch between the standalone mode to go into controller mode to be managed by our USG or our NXC controllers. And they also typically include like a 3 years of the Nebula Pro Pack. This primarily is for our access points. And there are some newer products that may have the Pro, but primarily it's for our access points, being able to go from standalone to controller to Nebula. So you have all three options. Now let's take a look at what is kind of an add-on, right? What comes with Nebula, or how do I get the different kind of packages of Nebula? So we really only have two Nebula things, right? We have a Nebula Free, which pretty much gives you all of the zero-touch deployment capabilities, central management, the captive portal, all the authentication, the syslog information, SNMP output, those kinds of things. Also with our access to our tech support. So we offer free tech support and lifetime warranty on the devices. Now, the difference between that one, the free, and going to a professional pack is that we will log up to 365 days versus 7 days of like client logs and information and device monitoring information. We have automatic email alerts. We have built-in authentication, unlimited accounts access, those kinds of things. Being able to do site cloning is in the professional pack, like I mentioned, with the doctor's office, being able to clone the different offices. That's a great function, great feature there. Being able to do organizational-wide backup restores, advanced switch and professional VPN capabilities, functionalities, and also direct ticket support with our support team within the NCC platform. So the professional pack comes in either annual, so it's usually annual per node. The cost ranges depending on what device it is. Typically, it's around, like for a switch or an access point, it's around $30 a year street price. So with your partner pricing and things like that, it's going to be a lot less than that, so that you can make your margins on those kinds of services. But what we do offer that's very different from a lot of the competitors that offer cloud solutions is we offer a lifetime license. So if you're looking at making an organization lifetime, that's probably your best option, your best bet, because if the technology ever changes, let's say you have an access point within that organization on a lifetime. If that access point either fails or you decide to switch out the technology, let's say you're going to Wi-Fi 6 or whatever technology is put it in that orbital, right? So that makes a great advantage on terms of if you're charging on a a monthly basis or on a yearly basis for that customer, that one-time fee for the lifetime package for that organization is already set, right? It's a set cost, fixed cost, and then over time you're making basically free, you're making infinite margin basically in that sense. Um, and so that's probably the direction most of our partners who do manage services will go to. Now, of course, you can use that organization and move the hardware to another customer if you'd like. If something happens or your terms are up within that organization, you can rename it and you can move the logs. Of course, you can reset all that information, the logs and things like that, kind of refresh it out, clean it if you need to, and then move it over to another customer to manage or just part of your service. So it's really a really good cost savings for that. Now, our security appliances, you would have to add one more thing. In order to get UTM functionality, you have to add what we call a security pack. And that's an annual subscription fee for the bundle of products that include application control, IDP, antivirus, content filtering. So you have to buy the whole pack, and that enables the security for that 1 year period for that device. Now, we do not offer any lifetime packages for this because those are all being paid towards that third-party services and the security engines that get continually updated, year over year. So that's how it goes. So again, we offer all these kind of tiers to make sure that you have the different options to provide for your customers. Now, in the wireless product portfolio, is really, I think everything is connected via wireless these days. So that's very important. So I wanted to educate you a little bit about our wireless solution. So have you ever experienced the fact that when you go into a high density deployment, APs, or even adding more APs within that doesn't really improve the overall connectivity or even the user experience, right? So say you have a convention center, that kind of deployment, or even in a classroom where you have one AP in every classroom, but you still have slow speeds or something's going on within the network. You've invested in new technology and you haven't seen really much of an improvement. So you're moving from this Wi-Fi technology to AC to AX, whatever it is, but you haven't seen any kind of overall improvement. You've also, in an office environment, you really expect that a lot of the services and things that you're using, like voice, video conferencing, they have a lot of times kind of usability or artification of the stream, whatever it may be. And also you have to provide connectivity for hundreds of users in a conference. But why do you have bad experiences, I guess, when this happens? And it's typically the issue is what we call co-channel interference. It means in order to achieve a lot of these newer technologies, the faster speeds, you have to use a larger channel width, right? So in the Wi-Fi, there's a lot of bands that you have to use a certain width range and be able to send packets and send traffic through that band. And in order to achieve more at higher speeds, you're using a larger width of that band, meaning that there are less channels that you can actually use without it interfering with each other. So co-channel interference is like a highway, 2 lanes merging together with no lights, no signals, whatever. People are just kind of coming in blind. The traffic is just coming in, as it comes, and there's a lot of collisions. And every collision of traffic, there needs to be a resubmit, right? Retransmit. So it just continually tries. And you can imagine if there are more and more devices within that area trying to send packets through the same pipe, it's going to have some issues. So traditional methods of dealing with co-channel interference is turning the signal down. So a lot of times, a lot of these APs, people will just say, hey, I'm going to blast my Wi-Fi signal everywhere. But then that causes a lot of trouble because if you have more than one access point, it's going to cause interference with the other guy. And especially if people are in that in-between spot. So the previous way of doing it is, hey, let's lower the output power. Let's mitigate, its coverage area and therefore mitigate co-channel interference. But we're going to cause some dead areas in between. So that's not a good solution either. So what does smart antenna do? And smart antenna technology allows for you to increase the capacity of the overall area in terms of coverage, being able to use the radio in a way that you can increase the capacity, increase coverage, reduce interference between it, and also make it a very cost effective in terms of power efficiency, reducing the power consumption needed. So what is smart antenna and how does it work? So conventional antennas within the Wi-Fi, usually, it can be an omnidirectional where it's like a circle or maybe like a like a spherical kind of coverage, or it can be a directional antenna where all the beam is focused in a very narrow area. And with smart antenna technology, it actually uses and scans for the client, and it looks for interference as well. So it looks for the client, finds interference, and uses over 700 optimized patterns to find the best pattern that for this particular client. So in my analogy for this, it's kind of the same where, let's say I'm talking to you in a field. If I was to cup my hands, you could hear me a lot better because I'm focusing my beam towards you. At the same time, I'm cupping my ears, so I'm listening to you as well, being able to listen to your direction. So any interference, any noise behind me is kind of canceled out, right? So I can hear you better, I can talk to you better as well. So that's the cool thing about the smart antenna technology. It's different from beamforming in that it doesn't require the client to have also that technology. We can do it all within our own device, being able to listen and be able to speak better into the direction of the client. Now, of course, if the client is moving, what happens there? So the AP will also do scans as the client is moving. So as you're roaming, it will again try to figure out what is the best pattern in that particular application, and then be able to transmit and listen better overall. Now, if you want to see more about how smart antenna technology actually improves and actually is very important within the Wi-Fi space, you can check out the University of Bruxelles. They did a performance analysis. They did an independent study on the power of smart antenna technology. And so you can find that out. You can just Google it, or you can follow the link. I know it's a little bit long, but you can always Google University of Bruxelles, Zyxel smart antenna, and it will come up with a report for you. But we basically go and competed against a lot of the big name competitors. So we're better in cochannel interference by 70% over Aruba, better coverage when comparing our APs against Cisco, even in 5 gigahertz, and then better than any other smart antenna vendors that are out there that have smart antenna technology itself, being able to do better overall throughput, better overall coverage. We pride ourselves in how we design our products as well. Like I mentioned earlier, we have hardware and software engineers that design their products. So we've refined, we've tuned, we made the product very robust. So if you're trying to compare our products against some of the other competitors, you'll see, if you ever have a chance to even open it up, you'll see kind of these components in there where we've taken seriously our antenna design, where the antennas are shielded. All the components like the CPU, everything like that is also, the Wi-Fi controller is also shielded from on the backside as well, to make sure that there's heat dissipation, and also shielding from other devices that may cause interference directly with the CPU chip itself. And so that's why we could stand and back our products with a lifetime warranty. The wireless can also be controlled by on-prem controllers. Again, it could either be used in the cloud. A lot of these access points are Nebula Flex, so you can flex them within the standalone or within the cloud, or you can still use them in a controller standpoint. If you want to do 64 access points, or even up to 1,024 access points managed within the premise, you can do that with our controllers. Now, we also have controllers that are built into our security firewall gateway. So that's another advantage of using all Zyxel solution, is that you can then manage APs, all the managed APs within the USG, the VPNs, or the ATPs themselves, anywhere ranging from 18 or 2 access points all the way up to 130 access points on the ATP 800 series. So quite a wide range of options that you have there, especially for the small business. Now, I wanted to cover some of our switching as well. Switching is very important within the network, right? All the Wi-Fi connectivity, all of your networks all have to go back to a switch network to provide the backbone of the whole system. And if that's not good, then you can have trouble that you can maybe have a hard time troubleshooting or figuring out why your connectivity is not good, right? So one thing with our naming conventions, just to cover that, if you are new with us, we use these naming conventions. ES, which we really don't have any products anymore. ES stands for 100 megabit. That's just an Ethernet switch. A GS naming is our gigabit switch. XS is our 10 gig switch. So X is just the Roman numeral for 10. So that's all ports with 10 gig capabilities, or even multi-gig. So 2.5, 5 gig ports. Now our XGS is a GS switch, so it's still primarily gigabit, all gigabit ports, except there are 10 gig uplinks. So that's where that XGS comes into play. We have some switches that are Metro Ethernet switches, Metro gigabit switches that are carrier grade. Now, if it ends in a P or an HP, that stands for PoE, or high power PoE. And if it has an F at the end, then it just stands for it has fiber ports. So it's primarily a fiber switch. Now, PoE is the #1 application in all of our products in terms of the switches. #1 application used because it's there to power up IP cameras, access points, voice over IP phones, those kinds of things. So we have a very wide variety of those kinds of PoE switches. Now, we do something differently as well. Most of the time, most competitors will use what we call classification mode. So it sets aside a set budget within the device. But we are able to actually use what we call consumption mode, or intelligent PoE, that actually delivers or actually reserves the power in the budget based on what is actually being used or drawn by the device. So I'll tell you in a bit why that is important. We can control the PoE as well. So we can turn on and off. We can actually set scheduling to turn devices off. We could set priorities. So in case there's some additional draw that happens, that we can actually give priority to certain ports on it. And we can also turn off, APs on a scheduled basis. Now, with our intelligent PoE, before in classification mode, let's say for this particular access point, it's classified as a class 4 802.3 AT PoE device. And that is a 30-watt standard. So in a typical switch, it will reserve 30 watts from its power budget. So if we were to power up 20 of these access points, we would need a PoE device of 600 watts or a budget of 600 watts in order to provide enough power to power up this device in classification mode. Now with consumption mode, it's being much more efficient about what is getting reserved. So in this particular access point, it actually only consumes 16 watts of power, which is more than your 15.4. So you can't go on the class 3 kind of solution for PoE. You can't go to the 802.3AF solution, right? You have to use an AT. So in consumption mode, you can power up 20 access points using 320 watts. So for this particular switch, which has a 375 watt power budget, it can power all that. So not only are you saving costs on the device because it doesn't have a super large power supply to give you 600 watts, but also you're saving as well on the consumption of powering the switch on a day-to-day basis. So we have a portfolio that has, again, a range from managed, unmanaged, from low power wattage under 100 all the way to budgets over 100, all the way up to 1,000 watts if you need, as well, with an additional power supply on some of the higher end models. So again, a wide range of products that can fulfill those needs. We have, again, web managed, smart managed switches. So on the low end, just any kind of GUI. Now, I know there's a lot of partners who say, well, I just need a switch. I would advise that you go with something that gives you visibility. So at least a smart managed switch or a web managed switch to give you visibility on what's going on in the network, especially when you're trying to troubleshoot what's going on, who's connected to what, and also gives you the ability, especially in the 1900 series, if there's an access point that seems like it's down or something is wrong with it, you can always do a power, just a PoE power reset. So it will reset that one port, bring it back online, and then it will supply power again to the device. And basically you're doing a remote reboot without having to reboot the entire network or reboot the entire switch so that all of your devices are down. So the 1920 series is where you will find some of our higher end. A lot of our partners, most of our partner deals and a lot of the projects that come through Zyxel are in this kind of series. It's in the 1900s or in our XGS 1930s, which provide 10 gig uplinks. And it has some of the best feature sets as well as the highest power budgets. So anywhere between 130 watts, 170 watts, all the way up to 375 watts on the series. So it's really perfect for the SMB, the small business space. And then if you're doing a larger deployment, either in a data center or you're providing internet connectivity to, as a hosted service or as a service provider, the GS2210 series and the 3700 series, those provide you full CLI capabilities, management, stacking functions with 10G, with and without PoE as well. So depending on what you need to do, full layer 2 switch. Now the XGS 3700 series, that's a layer 3, or at least light layer 3. So it has some of the key features for layer 3, like static routing, policy-based routing, VLAN stacking Q&Q, and then all sorts of other, features as well, including physical stacking up to 8 devices within that stack. And then, of course, on the higher end, we also have additional layer 3. Our XS 3800 is one of our newer switches. It provides, again, a light layer 3 functionality, but more importantly, it is a all 10 gig or multi-gig switch. So it has a lot of different configurations. It has 10 gig SFP fibers. It has SFP combo ports. It has 10G base T, RJ45 ports with multi-gig connectivity. So 1 gig, 2.5 gig, 5 gig, 10 gig capable on those ports as well. So a lot of, it's kind of like a hybrid switch to kind of bridge the gap between where you have gigabit with fiber tied in with 10 gig fiber and copper, right? So it's kind of a merge between those two solutions. And we see a lot of these are starting to pick up within our sales portfolio. And then our XGS 4600 is our full layer 3 switch portfolio, both within copper format or with fiber, all fiber. So if you're looking to provide fiber to the prem, fiber to a customer, or even within a multi-tier building where you're running fiber and you want to offer gigabit connectivity with fiber, this is our high density gigabit fiber port with 10 gig uplinks. Now, the last product line I wanted to introduce you to really is our IP surveillance. This is a product that we just released a few months ago that provide kind of a very specific functionality and product portfolio for IP surveillance. Because there's challenges within the surveillance market. Installers need a reliable source to power up those cameras. They need something that's very cost effective to make sure that the network is running, but also at a low cost. But a lot of times there's a lot of sacrifice. They're using whatever is provided by the vendor, which may not be a very high quality switch or doesn't have some of the complex features that you may need in order to manage kind of a multi-layer. Kind of the expectation of those switches, or at least those manufacturers of the cameras, is like, we're just providing you a switch that pretty much powers the device, but nothing else. And that's all we're concerned about. We just want to send the traffic back, right, to the DVR. And in a mixed network, that doesn't work. So you need some more complex functionality. You need to be able to have functionality to, especially when you're used to existing networks. So data, voice, and also, the camera network needs to co-work together somehow to be able to kind of have a cohesive network. And that's what we're seeing as well within our partner base. Or it's hard to support, being able to support non-IP cameras, non-standard cameras within the network. How do we do that without having to use injectors? Now, one of the features that our switches does come with for this portfolio is one that we call extended range. It allows for you to run an Ethernet cable, so still using your standard Ethernet, which usually has a 100-meter limit, right? 300 feet of Ethernet is pretty much where the traffic in the PoE goes. But using extended range and some special hardware functionalities and using that extended range functionality, we can actually go 250 meters. So that's 820 feet of Ethernet. But you do sacrifice your speed, so you can go down. It goes down to about 10 megabits per second, which for a lot of cameras and for these special cases, you can still run an HD stream using a 10 meg connection, especially if there's compression that's going on as well. So it's a standard base that can allow for you to do that, and you can do it both within our managed and our unmanaged systems using like toggle switches. Now, the managed system, of course, you can do that all within the GUI itself. We have a feature we call continuous PoE. Again, we've worked with some camera partners and some camera manufacturers on what is kind of the trouble areas and what can we do to help alleviate that. Now, we can guarantee uninterrupted power when we're doing certain things, right? Reloading configuration files, doing factory defaults, even doing firmware upgrades and any kind of abnormal reboots that may happen, any exceptions. All you got to do is just turn on continuous PoE, make it active. And if you ever do a factory default, or let's say do a firmware upgrade, your cameras will stay on, will still be delivering power to them. They won't be sending any traffic at that moment, but it does save the time where when the switch comes back on after the reboot or after the reload, the cameras will be sending their video data back again, right? We don't have to wait for the switch to boot up, then to power up the camera, then the cameras have to boot up, then start sending traffic, right? So we can alleviate that altogether using continuous PoE. And that requires special hardware that's integrated within the device. So that's why this particular switch line is made and tailor-made for this kind of application. It also can detect the status of the camera as well. So you can check the health of the camera, see the PoE draw, the system name, IP address information, all within the GUI of the device using that detection. Right, you've probably, and a lot of times you'll find like a black spot, right? Because the camera's either dead or gone, or we don't know what's going on. It's not sending traffic, it's not sending any video. What can you do? Well, the switch can actually be used to detect when there is a kind of a dead camera. You could ping, it will ping it, or use LLDP to detect it, and it will constantly poll the device. And if it hits these kinds of thresholds that you can customize and set, they can then be you can actually choose to reboot the device. And so that can solve a lot of the problems rather than sending a technician out to do a physical reboot. And these products are designed for reliability, all of the switches. And again, it's kind of the theme of all of Zyxel products, is that we put into concern on how the product, we're not going to make it a very like cheap product with using, cheap components, things like that. We provide better electrostatic protection, surge protection on the device. We use very intelligent fans that can optimize it to make sure that it lasts longer, also to minimize noise. We're using solid state capacitors to make sure, again, that the product will last and it doesn't have a failure within the capacitors, using high quality power supplies to ensure that the flow of power going to the device is very efficient and also very smooth, right? And to make sure that the power, it's always working correctly. So that comes into play. And again, that's why we can offer on our switch line as well, our lifetime warranty on the product. So our switches, our gateways, our access points, all of our Nebula products are all lifetime hardware lifetime warranty. Also free firmware upgrades for the life of the product, and also free tech support as well. So if you have not yet joined our partner program, I invite you to do so. You can find out more information about it at vars.zyxel.com. It gives you a list of some information as well as rebates that you're qualified for and things like that within distribution. So a lot of the partner discounts that come into play, and the cost is nothing. You don't have a cost to join. There are different tiers, so based on your volume of sales, puts you into the different tiers that gives you different advantages, different margins, those kinds of things. So take a look at that. Go to vars.zyxel.com. And of course, if you have any questions regarding the program, you can also email sales@zyxel.com as well, or myself. So you can call us at the number there you see, or you can email sales@zyxel.com. Or if you have any questions for me, any feedback, that kind of thing, you can email me at try@zyxel.com. Now, Don had one last question. He said, does the ATP series work with the Nebula platform? It will work with the Nebula platform in the future. We are working on that right now. Probably within the next quarter, Don, you'll see the ATP series be in the Nebula platform. So it will actually get a flex firmware that allows for you to flex it between standalone ATP or move it in the cloud as well. So that is going to be an exciting thing, because now you'll be able to have some of the higher throughputs and the functionalities that are part of the ATP series, but managed within the cloud. If there are any questions right now, please feel free to use the Q&A section. I know it's been a kind of a long hour. So again, I appreciate your time. Appreciate that you spent this hour with me and with us here at Zyxel. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are always available to try to help you think through with your partner, with your customers, how we can make sure that all of your devices are all of your solutions are, in the right devices are being used for those applications. So call us. We'll have our systems engineers there as well. Yes, Don, the recording will be sent out later. The link will be provided. Actually, it will be provided within your VAR portal. If you need the link directly, you can also just email sales@zyxel.com or email myself. And once our marketing team has that link available, it will be posted, and you can I can send that to you. That was really your last question. That's all right, Don. That's why I'm here, and I hope that these can be interactive, like you are doing right now, Don, just so we can have that communication. That's what we love to do, is be able to open that, be accessible, be available to answer those kind of questions. Because again, we want to be your networking ally. And again, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great rest of the day today, and also you have a great rest of your holiday season. We do have some other webinars that will be coming up in the future. You can go to the VARs page, or you can click on within our website for the list of webinars that you can sign up for. We also do kind of a tech talk every Tuesdays in this same time slot. And so we're working on that. But of course, with the holidays, there's probably a little bit less than normal. But once we get over to the new year, we'll have it'll come back to consistency again. So look forward to seeing some of you there. Again, thank you so much for joining us here at Zyxel. We'll see you again next time.